Okay. Well, hello, Julie Coer.
Hi, Jason Paget.
I was jumping over to Cowork because it was pinging me and telling me it needed my assistance to approve it of something. So, thank you for joining me because it has been a crazy, crazy last couple days. You
Oh,
probably did.
oh.
Are you aware that Mythos and uh, the other Claude model have been blocked by the United States government?
I did see that. As far as understanding it all, probably not, but I did see that.
Well, it's quite annoying because Fable 5, which was kind of the neutered version of Mythos. So
Oh,
they released Mythos to like a certain number of big companies through Project Glasswing. This is supposed to be their model that is able to detect cyber problems and decrypt things and expose things that have been like tens of 20 decades of just kind of sitting around untouched that make it kind of a both a cybersecurity risk and a cyber helper because it can patch all that. Before they were going to patch all that in these big companies, then deploy it. So they deployed about 5 days ago. They deployed Fable 5, which was a version that some people were really annoyed with because if you ask anything about biology, like what's the cellular wall of a mitochondria composed of, it would shut you down and kick you back to Claude Opus 4.8, like as a security, so you couldn't build bioweapons.
okay.
I can tell you that I was using it to build some apps and stuff, and it's phenomenal. Like, but I don't work in biology, so I don't really give a damn if it'll answer my biology questions or not.
Right.
Um, but then the United States government last night apparently through a third party was told that there was a hiccup in the system that was a vulnerability that didn't need to be out there, and so they said that no one who was not a foreign national could use this model. Like they
Okay.
sent out an executive order saying if you're not a foreign national, you cannot use this model. So Claude had to just shut the model down because they don't know how to police that. I mean, hell, half their employees are probably not foreign nationals. They're probably from India and China and places like that. So it has started a huge conversation around government oversight with these models. And is this just Trump still pissed off at Dario Amodei because they said that they would not sign the Department of Defense's contract that's unless it said that they can't use it for mass surveillance or autonomous weapons, or because according to Anthropic, like ChatGPT 5.5 could do the same, would have the same vulnerabilities and the same capabilities of what they shut this one down for. So are they just nitpicking at this, or have we gotten to a point where things are scary enough? Now, the inverse side of this is that Dario just posted a blog about how dangerous AI models are becoming and how much they need to be regulated by the government, which a lot of people think that's his scare tactic. Like, we're the safe AI guy right before they go for an initial public offering with their stock, and maybe that turned around and bit him in the ass. Like, be careful what you wish for, Dario, because now your model's down.
I don't know. It all feels, you know where I stand. I feel like it all does need oversight, but is the oversight coming from a good place or a pissing contest or whatever? I don't know. That's a whole other, beast. But
It is. And in U.S. politics, that becomes so. I want to frame this in two different ways because I've thought about. I mean, first off, it's annoying as hell,
mhm.
and I hate the fact that every time I get up my cloud model, it just continuously says that that model is not available right now. I'm like, okay, I get it. Can I just X that out so I don't have to be reminded of it every 30 seconds? So if you can hear me, Anthropic, take that damn sign down. But but the thing, Julie, because it made me think of you and UAPs, right? The issue with AI is the government has always been ahead of this stuff rather than behind it. So if you just take like whether or not UAPs exist, okay, if something crashes right now that no one knows what it is, and the sheriff's department calls somebody and the federal government finds out. They bring in the CDC and other people in their little like hazmat suits and say, everybody clear the area. We're taking over. This is our thing, right?
Mhm.
So they're like proactively a gateway to what the public has access to on the UAP front. And with nuclear, it was the same thing. With a lot of things, the government, with this one, it's the inverse. Like they're like, don't even know what the hell these models can do. Now
Mm.
they're hearing from a third party what the model can do and trying to figure out how they regulate something that they don't even understand and that didn't start in their labs. That dynamic is going to be difficult to navigate.
I mean, yeah, that would make sense. It's way more complicated than anything that I say. I would love for it to be regulated because, of course, as a citizen, I would like to be protected, but I also don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. I don't know, there's a lot that I don't know in that realm.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that brought up for like your average everyday business people who might be using Claude as a driver is, we've had a lot of conversations also in the last month about the cost of using these models and the amount of compute that's even available and whether or not that's going to go up. And so this conversation has begun around using like a model router that picks which models you're using inside your company for which for each instance. So like moving something from your email to your calendar might be a low model and helping you form your 5-year strategy might be a high end model. But the conversation, I think the scare for business people is okay, if I have like this operating system, big brain model that I'm paying for, what if it just gets shut down one day? Like, what does that do to my business? That's a big problem.
Well, it is. But, you also think we get outages now. AWS goes down. You know what I mean? And everybody shits bricks because people don't know what to do. Because that is a possibility. And it's possible that that something out of our control can shut it down, be that a hacker, be that the government, be that whatever. So it's interesting because you can't actually fully rely on it. It could shut itself down. We don't know. It could, advance so much that it does that itself. So always going to be a risk. Like you can't, it's interesting because my dad and I were at like his credit union having a conversation and they were filing paperwork. And we had this whole discussion about, with everything being advanced as it is, which is wonderful, but it's like, probably not a bad idea to have that paper copy just in case, right? Like, uh, you just don't know.
Yeah, and I think that becomes the question in the AI world because I worked in the restaurant industry, for a lot of years, and like we always had like the little credit card slider in case the power went out, so that you
Mhm.
could manually do people's credit cards. Like, what does that look like in an AI world? And the only way that I can really envision it, you can take an open source model and kind of fine tune it for your business and have it on your computer, your work computer, right? And so maybe that needs to be the backup. Maybe it's not that great, but maybe every company needs to have kind of a backup model that if they were to get cut off from the paid subscription model that they're running their business on, that they would have something to help them with that intelligent layer behind the scenes to get them through until they had access or could sign a contract with a different foundation model and then figure out how to integrate all that because all the models act differently in all the systems. And so it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting question.
It is, and there was a gentleman that I used to work for who always had this whole, "But what if, you get hit by a bus? But what if," like all of these backup plans for backup plans, and that's probably not a bad strategy to have when you have so much that's out of your control.
I think you're right. I mean, if you're talking about a 1-to-1 ratio of agentic employees to employees or a 10-to-1 ratio of agents to employees, like you better have some backups because if that system goes down, like you just lost, 9/10 of your workforce. You're gonna have some big problems there.
Yeah, yeah. Major problems.
Now let's talk about the sci-fi crazy healthcare stuff that I shared about. Like, I don't think people realize how the highest level conversations around what artificial intelligence and some of this new technology is going to do in the form of longevity and disease prevention and even genetic reprogramming. Like, I shared
Mm.
the Moonshot podcast with you, and like, I just want to get your feeling from that conversation.
Well, the biggest moment that I had that just literally made me like open my eyes wide was they said the first baby to live to be 1,000 is born right now. What? Like, what? Like, that's hard to process and wrap my head around. I have mixed feelings on a lot of it, because you do walk that fine line of, eugenics. Is it eugenics? What was it? Like, picking out what you want your child to be. I don't it's that gets real moral and ethical debatey, but I also understand it's gonna really benefit for disease prevention and cures and all that. So it's way more complicated than a this is this and this is that. It's never black and white. It just never is.
No, and what I take from it is, those guys I look at kind of the way I look at Elon, right? So, like, if Elon says we're gonna be on Mars in 10 years, I figure, okay, we're gonna be on Mars in 50 to 100 years. Like, I believe Elon is building the technology to get us to Mars, but I just his timelines are never really very realistic, right? Like, he thinks that we're going to have a launch of his spaceships building data centers in space, in the next couple years. Like, every 2 minutes, we're gonna launch one of those rockets and be building data centers in space. I'm like, "Okay, so what I take from what you're saying, Elon, is we really are gonna build data centers in space, but I highly doubt 2 years from now that, you're gonna be launching a rocket every 2 minutes." So, when I hear
Right.
these guys who are kind of Elon-esque in their advanced thinking when it comes to AI and genetics and stuff, say, "The first baby to live 1,000 years is born right now," I take that to say there's a damn good chance that my 15-year-old daughter will live to be well beyond 100.
Yeah.
And some things are gonna change in her lifetime, and that's interesting.
It is interesting, and I think even in our lifetime, we're gonna see. I mean, we already see people who live to 105, 100 and, 10, whatever. So I think, even in our lifetime, we're gonna see that extend out because they interestingly talked about, like, cell reversal,
Yeah.
right? And, like, making a cell younger and the way it processes. I found that all very fascinating because I am interested in longevity in a way, but I don't wanna live forever. I do not want to live forever, like, no, thank you. But I find it all very fascinating, and to know that there is this whole underground world. They had mentioned, like, 2033, which is really not even that far away, um, and then the other gentlemen were like, "Well, I could actually see some of this stuff." They're, like, doing human trials on some of this stuff already, and it's because the AI up front in some of the research has advanced it and moved it more quickly, but you still have the FDA involved, you still have humans involved, so,
Huge
you know
bottlenecks.
Mhm.
Probably good bottlenecks, right? Like,
I I would
on
assume.
the AI front, like, I'm okay with not bottlenecking it too much and kinda flipping the coin, but when it comes to, like, medical experimentation with human beings, I think the FDA bottlenecks are there for a reason. They're probably we're probably overregulated in some senses, but then I'd rather lean on the side of caution when it comes to testing on human beings. But one of the things that they said that I found so interesting is, like, they're talking about the reversing the age of a cell, and they're like, "Well, it's not just about what the cell appears as. It's like, take a liver cell. If we can reverse the age of it so that it appears to be a 25-year-old's, does it still process alcohol, acetaminophen, and all these other things that are going through it the way a 25-year-old's liver does in a 75-year-old that we did this in?" And I'm like, you're really, like, on the cusp of figuring out things like that. I mean, my wife my son has a biochem degree, and she's always been like, "Hey, you're gonna be my little boy who cures cancer." And she said to him the other night, like, "You still have, like, 50 years to figure out how to cure cancer." And I said, "Guarantee you by the time you're 30, we're gonna cure cancer, Carson."
Oh,
Like,
it's gonna be cured, yeah,
I don't
for
think we're
sure.
that far from that one.
Yeah. No, that one feels very attainable. There's a lot of, even autoimmune stuff, but especially, like, cancer, I feel like that's gonna be one of the first to be taken care of? I could be wrong, but they've already been doing all of this research in, people with HIV, right? So, like, I thought that was interesting because they've already done some research in that kind of realm and made progress.
And some preliminary research that GLP-1s may reverse aging. They said
Yeah,
that it's a
GLP-1, this it's bizarre. I get it, but as you start to learn more and more about it and, like, where it's coming from, it's like we still just don't know. Like, we don't know. People have been using Botox for a long time, and we still don't really know what that's going to eventually do to the body or how that impacts the internal organs. And GLP-1s, I understand there's all these increasing benefits to it, but there's also like, we also don't know what that's going to do. So it feels risky either way.
I was just thinking about it the other day. Is GLP-1s gonna be like our generation's Prozac? Because when I was a little kid, they just threw Prozac at everything. "Oh, you're not feeling very good. Here, take some Prozac." Oh, yeah, and then
Right.
eventually they figured out, well, maybe if you have serious depression, like, Prozac's a good thing, and maybe if you're obese, GLP-1s are a good thing, or you have diabetes, but maybe we don't need to throw it at everybody because there are some side effects that we hadn't, counted on. I that's what I hear you saying, and I think
Yeah.
you're right to be skeptical on that front.
Yeah. Well, just the way our system has worked for so long, and I think it's pretty out in the open now, but there's so much money behind all of it, right? So it's like, okay, I've heard this my whole life, follow the money. I think even George Carlin did, skits about it. Like, who's benefiting from it most? And even I had a conversation this morning about, there's the ticks on the East Coast right now that are causing a red meat allergy, which I actually know somebody who got that like 2 years ago. Okay. So I've been aware of this and its existence, but there's like conversations around, well, conspiracy theories, right? I should say. And I'm not leaning into it, but I'm just saying, like, you just don't know because when you start following money, you start to go, who benefits from that? Who benefits from lab grown meat? Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation benefit from lab grown meat. Is it possible that there's like a movement towards wanting humans off of red meat in particular because cows are bad for the environment? They produce the most methane. I don't know. But when you don't have full pictures, when you don't have transparency, it allows us to create these situations, these conversations. And then I'm a skeptic. I'm skeptical about medications, and I have been for a very long time because once you're on one, then all of a sudden you have to take another one for this symptom, and then you have to take another one for that symptom that this one caused. And it's like, I want to trust the science, but it's hard when there's money behind it and all of these different experiences.
Yeah, this is a growing concern that I have, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist here, but the whole I brought up Plato's Republic before, and this idea that like a small group of philosopher kings would be the right people to rule a nation because they would be completely ethical and not driven by capitalism or money. Excuse me, I guess I need a drink of water. But starting with the effective altruist movement and some of these really rich tech people, like, I feel like they think they are that, and, like, I could totally see them saying, "You know what? These stupid people shouldn't be eating cows. It causes, like, when they pass gas, it hurts the environment, it's not good for their bodies anyway, so since they're not smart enough to figure that out on their own, we're gonna help them out by releasing these ticks that will make it so that they can't eat it, and then they'll have to come eat our meat. Yeah, we make money off of it, but that's the side point, like, we're doing this for their benefit." Like, that type of mentality of this ultra trillionaire class or billionaire class. Elon's a trillionaire now after the SpaceX IPO. First
It's
trill
all fake. It's all fake. It's so fake. That company is also valued at like way obnoxious amounts. And then and the conversations around the stock market right now are wild because I've heard many different prospects on how it can really jack stuff up for us, for those who invest for like 401k stuff. It can really mess it up for us, because it's like an overinflated kind of situation. How many rockets has he actually launched that have not blown up? You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
tons.
Oh,
That was a worthwhile sidebar. I knew you'd flip out if I brought up Elon becoming a trillionaire. Thank you
well,
for reacting
yeah. Well,
appropriately.
and it's not even like a him particular thing. It's just the idea of it in general. It's insanity, and it's all this. You're worth this because of some stock market that's affected by people's emotions and whims and whatever. That is bananas to me that we are a country that thinks this person is worth so much because a stock market says so. I can say I'm worth that much, and as long as 10 people believe me, I can be worth that much. That's what it feels like. You know what I mean?
Well, I do feel like there's a good conversation starting to come out of it. And when you see Trump and Bernie Sanders almost agreeing on something, you have to go, wow, that's pretty crazy. But this idea that maybe the public, these large language models are using our energy, they were trained for free on all of our information. Like maybe the public deserves to have some type of ownership or recourse, heavy taxation for these gigantic trillion-dollar foundation model companies. I do love. Now Bernie met with Sam, and Bernie's proposal is 50%. I actually heard Sam's response because I knew he'd be like, bullshit. I thought we were talking like the 10% that Trump took from I can't remember who it was, AMD or one of those companies,
Oh,
and that the intel that they brought back to the United States, and Trump was like, yeah, the United States government gets 10%, which to me is like fair, honestly. I don't feel like it's socialism. I feel like it's kind of a fair deal. But as soon as Bernie said 50%, Sam was like, yeah, that's not happening.
well, but then you got to think, okay, if you take 50% of $1 trillion,
Yeah.
you still have 500 billion, whatever. I don't even know the math. You know what I mean? That's money you can't even spend over a lifetime. So why throw a fit about it? Like,
Well, because if you de-incentivize them being in the United States by taking 50% of their profits, they'll move offshore, which
okay,
then yeah,
like,
not
but
that
either way, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if money is that important to you, go away and go somewhere else. Like, go be with your money that doesn't exist, that you can't hold, you can't care about, you can't whatever. Just you and your money on a fucking island somewhere. Have at it. Because that's what
okay,
it
but we're
feels
not
like.
talking about the individual CEO. We're talking about the company's money and the shareholders' money that comes out of that company. So you'd be cutting that. These investors would be losing 50% of their income right off the like I 50% is a bit much. I would say tax them. Don't take a percentage
Yeah.
of the company.
Well, again, that's just me and my weird belief around money because it is just an energy thing and it's just something we make up. Because even in that podcast, they were talking about, and I didn't get into all of it because I fast forwarded like you had recommended, but eventually running Bitcoin or digital currency between
Yeah.
us and Mars. Okay, at that point, I'm just making shit up. Like, really, like, we have decided that this thing is worth this money and because it's just crazy to me because it's like why I would care more about, okay, I want to advance this technology because I have a purpose and an intention and I want the better for everybody rather than I want my money. I don't give a about your money. I don't care.
Well, and I think you're bringing up a great point, which is like with all these conversations, it is really difficult to pull the signal out of the noise, right? Like in the same 15-minute conversation about curing cancer and reversing aging, we're talking about colonizing Mars and sending crypto back and forth between Mars and Earth with a laser beam. And I'm like, you know, to somebody who maybe listens to that podcast all the time and is that big of a nerd, maybe they can separate it. But if I'm a general public and I just turned in, I'd be like, these guys are just nutcases. Like, what the hell are they even talking about? This is like a sci-fi podcast, but and some of it is, but some of it isn't. And I think it's got to be really hard to give information to the general public about the breakthroughs that we might have in science because at the same time they're hearing like the doomsday, all jobs are going to end and robots are going to take over the world and like how do you get to the signal through the noise, I guess, is really where I think that there's a big problem with communicating about all this.
No, there definitely is. There definitely is. And especially if we are going to go down the rabbit hole that they were talking about with the longevity, those are conversations that have to be had in public with people because they brought up IVF, for example, and how it used to be shunned, so to speak, and it was not acceptable because it was seen as, playing God essentially or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting point because I wasn't like old enough when that was going on to be concerned or have conversation around it. But now being, an adult and hearing people talk about, well, you can pick, like the gentleman had used the example of the percentage of NBA players being over 7 foot is, whatever. So you could sit down and go, okay, well, I want a 7 foot child because I want this child to play in the NBA for financial gain for yourself. Right. And that is a murky, messy thing and people would do it. You know that people would
Yeah.
do it because of this capitalistic chasing money. kind of thing. So you have to have, if we're going to go down longevity and, you know, and do it from birth, there have to be real clear conversations.
Yeah, the genetic reprogramming conversation becomes dystopian really quick because you can say, okay, we identified autism in this embryo. We can genetically reprogram that out, and the child will come out and be healthy. And 99% of people are going to be like, cool. A small percentage of people are going to be like, no, you're playing God. Like you just have to let the child. But then it's autism. Then it's well, this kid has like one little toe that's going to be noticeably smaller than the other toes on their feet, and their friends are gonna make fun of them. So, like, now we're moving the line in the sand of what we're
Oh,
really doing.
yeah.
Then there's gonna be like, well, the parents aren't really all that bright. Do we really wanna set this kid up to be like an idiot? So maybe we mess with the intelligence a little bit, and, like, that line in the sand just keeps on moving, and, that is a scary conversation and one that will definitely have to be public and one that will get a lot of pushback and conversation all the way around. It's interesting to me. It's not something I spend a lot of my time thinking about, but
Right.
I recognize as it will be a huge conversation, bigger than privacy. Privacy is going to be the first big conversation when we get ambient listening devices, but once we start talking about reprogramming things, that and the whole idea of AI personhood, which I don't know if I told you this or not, but Argentina is
Hmm.
now completely deregulated. You can start an AI company there with no regulations, and they're recognizing AI personhood.
Okay.
One of your boys just moved down there, so we think that might have something to do with it.
Good deal.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he probably has a relationship with his AI, so he can enjoy that in Argentina.
I mean, I have to say I was wrong. I told you I thought the Pope was jumping the gun on bringing that conversation up
Right.
in his encyclical. I was like, "You're just gonna start that conversation, and we're years behind it," but apparently not because Argentina
Right.
is leaning into it.
Interesting. That is interesting. I was not aware.
Yeah, so if you wanna marry your AI, all you need to do is learn Spanish. Well, you don't even need to learn Spanish because 'cause it'll translate for you, and
It'll
then
translate. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, let's go to, you know, and again, at that point when you're reprogramming DNA, yeah, like, it might as well just be AI reproducing itself, honestly.
Well, and the real nerdy guy that you heard on there, Alex, like he goes a little deep some, but he's a big one on the whole idea that we will integrate with the technology as time goes on, and so that there's no way to really keep up with it unless we do. And there are certain techno humanists. I don't know what they call themselves, but there's a certain breed of people who believe that becoming a cyborg is the right way for the human race to head.
Well, I told you many moons ago when we started talking about this, I said I feel like that's evolution in it. I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised because I feel like that's evolution. Like, what's the next evolution of a human? Well, to integrate with AI in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, unless they make some serious advances in longevity, I don't think I'll probably live to see that, but
I would rather be gone. To be honest, I can watch from wherever my little particles of energy go to. I will observe from there.
I was just thinking if they get the longevity thing down, like, what's our podcast gonna be like in 100 years?
Who knows? It's gonna
Happy
be
115th, Julie!
That's right. That's right. Well, our vocal cords will stay young because we'll
Oh,
have
yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
make the cells younger. Yeah.
Wild times.
Very wild. Thank you for sharing that with me, though. That was enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah, I thought you might I thought it might spark some thoughts for you.
Yeah, definitely interesting. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Moonshots. I highly recommend it if you wanna really nerd out on what the super intelligent, super futurist people think we're headed towards. It's a good I mean, the funny thing about AI is, I could send you another podcast with a couple of people who are like, "These things are just stochastic parrots, they're idiots, this technology is going absolutely nowhere." So, the
Mm,
opinions are across the entire spectrum, but I think we're starting to realize they're not stochastic parrots. They're definitely gonna change our economy and the way that we do things, uh, in some significant ways, whether or not we're on the timeline that some of the most advanced people think is still a bit questionable, but I do think we'll see some changes in the next year.
yeah. Well, it's moving fast enough, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, we'll be right here to talk about it.
That's right.
We're getting ready to go to Mosey Down Main Street.
Yep. Well, I got a mosey tonight.
Have fun.
Thank you. We'll do again next week.
See you next week, Julie.
See ya.